Good morning. I'm Karen Turner from the Bureau of School Leadership and Teacher Quality down at PDE in Harrisburg. And I work with validity of certificates, school certification audits, and job descriptions I review, course descriptions I also review. And I want to introduce Renee Lanker. She's a supervisor in certification services. We're going to be sharing the PowerPoint together because we each have different areas that we're more familiar with. We have had a change in the last 2 weeks. Our current Bureau Director was Dr. Carrie Helm, and there has been a shift in our Bureau. We are going to be having Dr. Deborah Heath Thornton. She is from charter schools as a division chief currently. She worked in private schools previously. She has not been a PDE a long time, but she's been there a couple years. Dr. Carrie Helm is going to now be a division chief in certification services. We have not had a division chief for a long time in there, so that was a shift where he is going to be. Also, we have Dr. Christina Baumer. She is the head of professional development and planning, which is the college liaison program and the college approval program for certification. I'm also under her division. I'm a little different than the other two liaisons in what I do, however. We also have 2 certification supervisors. Renee is one. Phil Ferrari is another one. You've probably worked with all of us. We have 6 certification specialists and 5 certification evaluators. You talk on the phone with them or email them sometimes, I'm assuming. I'm under the Division of Teacher Quality. And again, I do staffing, validity, and audits. Jamal Wakim is the college liaison for several colleges. Stephanie Stauffer is another college liaison. They also do lots of other high-level work with Chapter 49 and other initiatives, the residency program, and different new initiatives that are going on. This is an idea of our numbers. If you want, we have few staff, but high numbers. As you can see, those were the staff on the other screens. And these are our numbers. We get, these are not 2018, they're from a couple recent years. We have a great number of calls, 82,000 in 2 years. Chats, 19,000. Tickets, 21,000, and applications, 55,000. So we have high numbers and small staff. So if you wonder why you can't get through quickly, then here's the idea. Here's some more data. There has been a decrease in education majors in colleges. You can see by the chart how it falls from 2010 to 2016. These are our most recent numbers that we have graphed. So it is harder to find teachers, and here's why. This is a list of an example of the kinds of applications we get and how many we process. We're going to explain all the different types of certificates for those of you that are brand new. But these are some of the types of certificates that we process. And you'll understand this as we go. For add-on instructional certificates, which is when you just add a subject area by a test to an existing full instructional certificate, we processed in 2017-18 1,504. In-state instructional, that's the regular college program certificate that you do a full program with tests, 12,000. Out-of-state instructional, people that did an out-of-state program, 1,092. And our total of those certificates in the instructional area, 14,910. Other certificates that were issued, administrative, which could be principal, superintendent, or voc director. You can see the last column shows those numbers. There's a lot for plain principal in this state. And then we also have supervisory certificates, which might be a math supervisor, curriculum instruction supervisor, various types of supervisors. Those are the numbers for that. a smaller number. Emergency permits, that's when they don't have a certificate, but they have a bachelor's degree. You can see the numbers for that are pretty high. A total of 18,000 for 17-18 school year, various types. And we've had a lot of PDE web changes lately, and just currently we had some new changes. Renee will talk some about that.
We're trying to make the website more self-sufficient. Okay, in the past it was very confusing. You can see people can't get through because of the high volume of calls and things. So this spring we did a big push to change some of the website. You might have noticed under Help with TIMS, we now have user guides, which was great. There wasn't even a user guide. So currently for the school districts, there is a user guide for emergency permits only. Our hope is here, like over the winter, to get a user guide for the school districts to do level 2s as well. But for the candidates, there are user guides on logging in, submitting an application, changing their name, if they had a social security number that needs to be corrected. There's a lot of information under Help with TIMS. So that's where we're directing. You'll also notice this spring we started to condense and eliminate a lot of words. People don't want to read a book when they go on the website. So you'll see blocks, you know, like quick link blocks with just a few words in. Now what happened is last week or 2 weeks ago, the department did a whole revamping of the whole website. So now when you go on, you'll see it look even differently because our neat bright blue and green blocks are now, you know, like a medium color blue. The whole website has to look alike. So nothing has changed in the last couple weeks besides the appearance. So when you go on, it might look different to you because we don't have the same color blocks and so forth, but everything is the same. What we are currently doing right now is updating all of the FAQs. If you ever clicked on that link for FAQs, there's a whole list from level 1 to level 2, from emergency permits. There's a whole big list. When you would click on it, it would be sometimes 9 pages long because, you know, just scroll continuously down. What I'm working on now is, and I think we have about 4 of them done, is when you click on, say, administrative FAQs, it's like an accordion style now. So you'll get the 9 questions right in front of your face, but you're not going to see the answers, which was very, you know, overwhelming. I would have clicked it off myself. I said, there's no way. If I go to a website and they give me 9 pages of FAQs, I'm not reading those. So now you'll see like the 9 questions, and if you click on it, like a lot of websites do, it'll open up your answer. Click on it and close it. So that's currently what we're working on. Also, we're, like I said, hopefully we have directions as self-help for you for level 2s this spring. And also we want to revamp for the applicants the level 1 to level 2 page. Right now that's very scanned information, and that's what a lot of our information. So you're going to see some hopefully some helpful hints when you come on there, helpful guides. So just stay tuned. You're going to see it revolving over the next few months, but hopefully it's a good thing. So Karen is going to do certifications and staffing.
For those of you that are new, we wanted to give you the explanation of what kind of certificates we even have. We thought this would be very good to start out so you know what in the world we've already been talking about. And one of the main certificates, well, they're all main, but instructional. Those are teacher certificates. However, it could be like a math certificate, a science certificate. There's 5 sciences. It could be, we have a whole group of certificates, instructional. They're the teaching ones, but sometimes those certificates are used for other than regular teaching in a classroom. They can be instructional, but they might be something used for something else, and you can see that as we go. We also have a link there that will lead you right to all the certificates, all their codes, And this will be very helpful link for you. Education specialists, that's another category of certificates. Those are the services. For instance, school counselor, school psychologist, home and school visitor, which has a lot of similarities to social worker, school nurse, and dental hygienist. Those are the categories for education specialists. Also, we have supervisory certificates. There's a couple kinds. We have a curriculum and instruction supervisory certificate, which is across all instructional areas. That person may be developing curricular programs, assessing production and numbers of student improvement, achievement, and those are just some of the main things. Pupil personnel services. This is designed to be over education specialists. We've seen a lot of other things going on. However, that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to be the umbrella certificate over education specialists. Single area supervisors would be like a math supervisor. There's different specific supervisory areas that we have with codes and everything. So there's a math supervisor, there's an English communication supervisor, and various ones. There's special ed supervisor, and of course, you can see a whole list when you get to the link. Administrative areas, principals, we have vice principals in there, but there's also VOC directors, superintendents, and assistant superintendents, executive directors, and assistant executive directors. So those are the main administrative areas. Vocational areas, that would be a different category altogether. The requirements are different. The way we process is different. And there's vocational intern, vocational instructional, supervisor of voc ed. There's only one supervisor certificate in voc. It's not a whole group of every area. There is a vocational administrative director. Bachelor's degree is not required for this type of vocational certificate. However, many vocational people have one, but it's not required. There are specific work requirements. Before you get this certificate, you have to have been in the field, and those are assessed by the college that offers these programs. But there's specific changes in that recently. There's more work experience required than there used to be, and we're in the process of getting that information out correctly. There are 3 colleges that offer VOC certification, and I have this on here just because if you have questions about your people, anytime that you have program questions, what in the world are they doing, what do they still have to do, it might be helpful to know that there are these connections. We do help you with that, however, so you're not alone in that, hopefully. Additional certificate types. I'm going back to the intern certificate. That is, it could be an instructional area or vocational area. In each case, there are 3 calendar years of validity. This is the only certificate type, like intern, that has a calendar year validity. In other words, if it starts to be valid January 1st of 2000, it will expire December 31st of 2003. Did I count right? So it's a calendar year. Other certificates are not by the calendar, and we're going to explain that down the line here. We also have ESL Program Specialist Certificate. It is not the same kind of certificate as all the others we've talked about. It is a short program. It is a program specialist, which is not a full regular certificate. It's called Program Specialist because it's a special program. And if you're doing this in Pennsylvania, you must have an instructional certificate to start with before you can add this program and certificate area. If you're coming from out of state, we have a special provision based on Chapter 49 interpretation. If they have had a full ESL program out of state, we must give them the program specialist, but it stands alone. And there's a lot of questions you might have about that, but that does exist. Endorsements, those are new in the last several, maybe 5 years. They are a short program. They are not a teaching certificate. They don't give anyone a privilege to teach something. They are extra knowledge that they're documented by an endorsement on the certificate. And there are a lot of these coming out. We have them on the web. For instance, there's a STEM endorsement. There's a gifted endorsement. They're supposed to be enhancing your marketability, but it doesn't give you the right to teach with that endorsement. So we have to be careful with that. There's a lot of confusion out there about what is an endorsement. Level 1 to level 2, Renee, I think, is going to work on this one.
Level 1 to level 2, and that's regardless if we're talking about instructional or education specialist. Okay, they come with the requirements of needing 3 years of satisfactory service, an induction, which you all have PDE approved induction programs, 24 post-baccalaureate credits, and this is where these 3 things come with a lot of misinformation, and from teacher to teacher, from district to teacher, and from the colleges to the teacher. The 3 years of satisfactory service. First of all, a level 1 is valid for 6 years of service, not calendar years. This is the biggest biggest group of misinformation that goes out there, because no one seems to understand that it is service years, because Act 48 is calendar years. So it's very confusing between the two. We do have a slide, which is a very basic slide, which I think is very helpful to explain it even further. But if, for example, if I come out of teaching my teaching program and I don't get a job right away, okay, I might stay at home, I might day-to-day sub, I might leave the state. My Act 48 clock is ticking, because that doesn't care what I'm doing or where I am. The validity of the level 1 is not kicked in until you actually accept a contracted full-time position or a long-term sub position that's 70 consecutive days or more. This is all explained in CSPG number 7 in fine detail. But this is the I would say most of our questions about level 1 to level 2 is they look on their certificate or on the internet. They see it was issued 2013. Expiration date is blank, but they see valid 6 years. So they calculate in their mind and they put an end date to it. And they'll call in and say, my certificate's going to expire in 2019. My certificate says it's going to expire in 2019. No, it doesn't. Yes, it does. That area is blank, but they calculate it out because they see the 6 years of service and they think that's calendar, even though in the back it explains that, but you don't turn it around. So that is the biggest group of misinformation out there is about the years of service. And I'll be honest, a lot of it comes from the district level as well. So if you're clear on that, you can help your staff be clear on that as well. The other thing is the 24 post-baccalaureate credits. A lot of the colleges, a lot of the school districts think it's 24 credits taken after they get their certificate. That is not true. It's 24 credits taken after they get a conferred bachelor's degree. So you might have somebody that did a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and goes back and does a master's or a post-bac program to get their certification. All of those credits that they took to earn their certificate are also being able to be used for their level 2. Not for Act 48, but level 2. They do not have to be master's credits. They can be undergraduate credits. The law just requires that they're taken past the bachelor's. So we have people that call in and they may have their master's, they might have even their PhD, and they go back to do a cert program. Those credits, now 6 have to be specific, so to the education field. But the law just says the credits cannot be in law, theology, real estate, or medicine. So if you have someone that goes back and gets a master's in business and then goes on to get their certification, most of those business master's credits can be used besides the 6. So it is the thing I think the thing that's misunderstood the most is what credits count, and it's the credits past the date of the bachelor's, not the date that necessarily got their certificate. Okay, is that clear? Are there any questions on that? Okay. Of course, they have to have a chief school administrator recommendation. You have to click off that block. Good moral character. If there's anything in their background, that will be checked when they apply for their level 2. That will slow things up for them. It doesn't mean they're not going to get their level 2 if they've had a DUI or a conviction or something in the past, few years, but it does go through a specific review. And also, they need to become a U.S. citizen. If they're not, when they get their level 1, they must be a U.S. citizen by the time they get their level 2. The only area that's exempt from that is if they're a foreign language teacher. Now, do you have someone that's a foreign language teacher in secondary math? Okay, then they need to become a U.S. citizen to convert that math. We've already had a situation where we had a lapse, the one cert, and their other foreign language was valid. So it gets into a really tricky situation there when you have someone who's not a U.S. citizen if they're certified in multiple areas. Okay, does that make sense? Transcripts, and this is another misconception. They think because they did a Pennsylvania certification program, PD has to have my transcripts, right? So they'll call us and say, no, I did a PA program, you have my transcripts. No, you didn't read that anywhere. You're just thinking that we just automatically house all of your stuff, and that's not the case. TIMS, now that we have TIMS, we can upload documents that are submitted to us for more permanent record, but it's not automatic. So they have 2 ways to send in transcripts. Either they have to get them from their college and submit them in the sealed envelope along with their cover sheet, or there is an online, an RA account where their college can upload them. College, not them. They try to upload them as well, but we can only accept them as official if the college directly uploads them. Also, if they are not in the candidate's current name, that option is out to them, because the only way, since Social Security numbers are not on your transcripts and so forth anymore, the only way we have to match electronic transcripts is by name. So if they're, if they've changed their name and their transcripts, they've not changed the name on their transcript, then we have no way of matching, okay? They must be in their current name, their TIMS, in their TIMS profile, or that's not an option. Applicable service, again, CSPG number 7 is, I didn't list everything because it would go pages and pages and it would just be boring. I just want you to refer, though, for the complete listing. There's 3 types of service. One is mandatory, meaning this is service that they must count. There's no option to not count it. There's optional service, which means they can if they want, or they don't need to if they don't want. And the third is non-creditable service, means they can't count it even if they'd want to. Counting service. Service of 70 days or more in a single assignment counts. And that's when I said if someone's a long-term sub in their certification areas, not on an emergency permit, but in their certification areas, and it's 70 consecutive days or more for that same assignment, that does count against the validity. Service must be 50% or more of the school day or school week. It must be in the area of their certificate or under the scope of the certificate held by the educator. And the instructional one certificate is considered to be a single certificate with various areas. So a big question we have is, I hold pre-K 4 and I hold special ed, but I've only been a pre-K 4 teacher. So how does that work? Any service on any subject area counts against them as an instructional 1 holder, okay? Those areas do not stand alone. They do not just convert one area. So you might have somebody that's certified with 5 instructional certificates. Any time that they teach on any of their certificates is going against that 6 years of validity. Okay, does that make sense? So they don't get 6 years in each subject. When they convert to level 2, all of those subject areas under the instructional heading will convert to level 2, regardless if they've ever taught there or not. So in the case where I'm pre-K 4 and special ed, if I've only taught pre-K 4 and I go to convert to level 2, all my instructional areas, the special ed will convert as well. Okay, so any questions on any of that?
So if I have a teacher who is...
Oh, wait, sorry. You have to wait for the microphone, or it won't get on.
Does that count for emergency permits too? So a teacher who's certified in 7 through 12 CA, but is teaching ELD, and they are emergency permitted in ELD, how does that work?
No time on an emergency permit counts, either for or against. So if they're a day-to-day sub, day-to-day subbing, you'll find that under non-creditable service under the CSPGs. If they're a day-to-day sub, whether they're on an 06 or you're just using them on their certificate, none of that counts. Long-term subbing, if it's on an emergency permit, does not count because it's not their certificated area. They must be serving in one of their certificated areas for it to count.
Okay, so it is not counting against the 6 years.
Does not count against
Thank you.
nor for. Good question. We get that one a lot too. Any other questions? Work affirmations. How many in here are provisioned in as a certifying officer in TIMS? Okay, so there's a few of you. Anybody's provisioned in at the superintendent level? Okay, so I'm basically talking about the certifying officer role then. Just to let you know how this works, if I'm the applicant, okay, and I'm going for my level 2, I'm going into TIMS and I'm generating my application for level 2. My work information will come up. This is not necessarily accurate. This is only pulling information from PIMS from the last few years, and it may not be even correct. So as the applicant, I have the ability to add, edit, or not agree with, I think it's delete or in there, that work affirmation and correct that. A lot of applicants do not know that. So now it comes to the district level, incorrect. The district is the next person in line that has the ability to add or edit or to correct. Okay? A lot of districts don't know that. So you push it through to PDE. Now PDE gets it and it's not complete. Unfortunately, when TIMS was designed, we do not have the ability to send that application back to you at the district level to correct. It was something that wasn't even thought of when TIMS was designed. We have no way to redesign that and send it back. Now, your teacher will get a notice, you only have 1 year of service. Now, you're responsible for filling out the old P form that we used before TIMS because we have no other option at this point, okay? So it's very important that they understand they should correct it. If not, you correct it, and if not, you're going to be asked to fill out the old P form for them, okay? Does that make sense? It sounds like we went 3 steps backwards, which Feels like we did, but we got to deal with what we got until we have a new system down the road, whenever that might be. I'll probably be long gone. But unfortunately, TIMS is what it is. We work with it the best we can. You may call in as a school district with a TIMS question. You're talking to an evaluator, you're talking to me or Karen or somebody. We are not IT. We are not the IT staff. You're never going to be able to get to the IT staff at that level. Unfortunately, we don't know what your screens, what's going on. We're going to help you the best we can, and that's all we can do. You know, sometimes we do have the ability to contact, you know, our IT staff and maybe get some help, but for the time being, we are it. Okay? So you have the ability, you can also sometimes, and this is another flaw of TIMS, the person might have submitted an application a couple years ago where you never finished the work affirmation. It might have sat on your dashboard and then, like for a while, you didn't know what to do with it. Maybe it disappeared. It didn't really disappear. It's running somewhere on your dashboard as incomplete. So we might ask you, or the applicant might ask you, to search for them by their PPID number. Okay? That will bring up any started work affirmations that you have for someone. You're not going to see them on your dashboard anymore, but when you go in and search for them by their PPID, they may pop something up. And another flaw of the system is if you don't take care of those old work affirmations, it's going to hold the person's current application up until you do so. So like I said, it's another flaw that unfortunately we just have to deal with and work with. But if you all know that information, it may make this process a little bit smoother for you. This is the screen I was talking to you about. This will be a good handout. It may be even a good handout for you to print and give to all of your staff in the school district, because this explains it all right here. Okay? This is level 1 to level 2 versus Act 48. Level 1 to level 2 is service years. Act 48 is calendar years, 24 credits, 6 credits. The types of credits are different. They need induction. No notice goes to the educator that they're going to lapse, because we don't have the ability to track your 6 years. So they will not be notified by PDE that, you're in year number 5, you have 1 more year and you're going to lapse. That's not going to happen because we don't have the ability to track that, okay? Where Act 48, because it's calendar years, does track right where they are in that system, and they will get a notification through the mail if their address is current in TIMS, because that's the address that it uses to send out their Act 48 is the address that's in TIMS. No current address or didn't update their address, they're not going to, go to, to their old address and be returned to PDE. Those actually go through the mail, okay? Penalty for a level 1 to level 2 is a lapsed certificate, meaning, they're done in the classroom until they get their level 2. We get a lot of questions on that as well. I'm lapsed. They think their certification is lost to them. It's not lost. They don't have to go back and do another program. They don't have to test. All they need to do is meet the level 2 requirements. As soon as they meet them, say they've been lapsed for 2 years. They've taught their 6 years. They didn't get their 24 credits. The school district says you're done. They go out, they finish up their 24 credits. Now they can apply for their level 2 and they're back on track again. So they don't start over. They do not, start at square one, which is what a lot of them think, okay? Penalty for Act 48 is an inactive certificate, meaning they cannot be hired in a contracted position. They can do 90 days in a calendar year of day-to-day subbing or subbing or on their certificate area, but only 90 days, okay? Sometimes that just gives a district enough time, buys them enough time for them to do their Act 48 quickly and get back on track. And everybody asks where, what can we do? We're not Act 48, but the Act 48 website does have some free online courses that they can do, pretty quickly. I don't know how many. I don't know how many hours or credits, because like I said, that's not our office. And of course, the IU has tons of things that they can get into to do pretty quickly. They don't have to actually go out and take a college course, if, pay all that money if they don't want to. Did you have anything to add to that, Karen? That's
No.
great.
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Certificate validity. Now, Karen's going to talk about the CSPGs.
Okay, I work with Validity, so I'm here to explain what in the world that is beside the fact you heard 6 years. And 6 years applies to instructional certificates and education specialists. It does not apply to some of the other certificates, which also have validity periods. So, a level 1 certificate, meaning any level 1 from instructional to administrative, is valid until the end of its specific validity period. Validity periods for each certificate type that's listed in CSPG 3. And we are going to explain more in detail what in the world are the CSPGs for some of you that might not know them yet. We've been saying a lot about CSPGs. They're pretty much the guidelines for certification. And I will get into more details so you have some idea what in the world that is. Time served on the certificate is what counts. Just like Renee said, it's service time. It counts against validity, and sometimes you'll hear it referred to as work experience. There's other ways to say it. It's just that it's when they work in the school. CSPG 7 also assists with how service time is calculated against the level 1. There's a lot of details in CSPG 7. It's a long, several pages. However, also you can call us and talk to me because I do validity. And there's a lot of confusion different times. First of all, from educators, especially if they're doing odd jobs, like 70 days here, 70 days there, a year here, a year there. They're out on maternity leave and all kinds of different scenarios. And even many districts have questions because often they think it's, again, like Renee said, it's the calendar year. But I'm here to try to help with that. So, lapse certificate is when the educator has completed the maximum years of service and not converted the level 1 to a level 2 certificate. The LEA guidance, there is guidance in Basic Education Circular 12-1201. If you go on our website, well, this is a link, and you would scroll down to the words lapse certificate, and you would see these numbers. But nevertheless, this is on our website under certification, and you can find a list of these links also on there. Another step in finding out if there is a lapse certificate, I mean, as an HR person, you may have some candidates, some educators, you all of a sudden look at their certificate and the work service they have, and they've done 5 years, and they haven't converted to level 2 yet. So that might be a warning signal. 5 years is sort of getting close to 6. So you might want to take some extra steps, I would assume, first with your educator and talk to them. And each district has a little different method of how they work with that. I know some IUs have a running computer list. They document everybody's service time and send out notices, because I've gotten many emails that say, I've sent out 5 notices and they still didn't do it. So I know districts and IUs do keep records, and I suggest if you're new to this that you come up with a system that your district wants you to use and keep some type of records. Some people say, how do I know how many years they did in other districts and other schools? Well, our best suggestion is that you should interview them. At the time of interview, get a list of information. It may not be 100% accurate, but you're going to get a ballpark figure to start with, and you can look into further. Also, sometimes if you didn't do that when there was an interview, you can do it soon after they're hired, so that you start somewhere and don't end up with, this person's lapsed and they're in my classroom. And that shouldn't, we don't want that to happen. So there's different ways to approach it. But this documentation worksheet, it's a legal form that we have on our website, and it's a chart, and what the district does, if they think this person's lapsing or soon lapsing, they work with this educator and they list the service time by semester. It's important, semester, and the chart will help you with that. And you list the assignment, and we need the certificate, and the grade levels matter in many cases. So the chart gives you what to do. Then you have the educator sign it, and one of your top people, HR, superintendent, signs it. And then you can email it and scan it in directly to me. It's not that hard to do that these days. We don't have to go through the mail if you don't want to. You can if you want, but you may scan it directly. Educators may not serve in the Bureau if the Bureau determines that the level 1 is lapsed, but they may convert to level 2 at any time after the requirements have been met, like Renee said. So once you know from us, you have an official letter from us after you do the documentation worksheet that this person is definitely lapsed as we determine by looking at the calculations, then they should be out of the classroom. And they can come back, that's your local choice, but they have to meet the requirements for level 2 and get the certificate first. We don't mandate how you orchestrate the gaps. There's different ways different districts work with that, with their educator, but basically the person is not supposed to be in the classroom after you get our official letter. Anyway, do you have questions on what we just said? Because that is an area you can email me or ask questions on. There are a lot of educators these days that do such odd pieces, and it's not always math, it's not always science. Sometimes it's some kind of odd job, and I only did it for 40 days. But we don't count anything 40 days. We only count 70 days or more in one assignment in their certificate area. If you're not sure if it's under their certificate area, that's when you probably should contact me, because there's a lot of odd pieces of service these days that aren't like the old days. Yes?
Actually, just, I don't want to take up any time here, but if any districts have a system that they're currently using to keep track of educators' validity, I'd love to hear it. Afterwards or anything like that, just come to me. Right now, that's what I'm trying to do, trying to keep track of everyone in our district, and right now I just have a spreadsheet. But if anyone has a system that works for them, I'd love to hear it. Thank you.
Commercial plug for IU13, we are actually in development of that as we speak, Justin. So we should have that ready sometime within the next, hopefully, 12 months.
Okay, and there are other IUs that have systems in place. I can't give you a list, but I've talked to many that have one. So emergency permits, this is when you don't have a certificated educator for the position. An emergency permit has requirements, but you might need an emergency permit. So I'm going to let Renee talk about this. This is her area of expertise also.
Again, how many districts in here get emergency permits? Most everybody. Okay, so hopefully this is valuable information to you. There's different types of emergency permits, and we just redid, and not just, actually it was in the spring, CSPG number 13. That's the one for emergency permits. We tried to make that very clear. So we're hopefully that I'll just breeze right through this and you'll say, oh, I've already read that. This is clear. I'm good with this. But there are 06, our guest teacher permits. This is day-to-day substitute permits may be requested by the LEA responsible for the guest teacher program. I think your IU might run a guest teacher program, so this would refer to them. This does not apply to long-term substitutes. We're just talking day-to-day subs for guest teachers. Private provider reminders. We have a lot of private providers out there, like Source for Teachers. There's a lot of private agencies out there. Each LEA, which is it means your school districts. It's local education administration, I think it is. It's our fancy name for, public school entity, whether you're the IU or a public school, is responsible for the substitutes working with its students. If you are working directly with a private agency, not the IU, but like a Source for Teachers, or I can't think of all the names, you're responsible for making sure that that individual that's coming into your school district, that you have gotten an emergency permit for that person, okay? The private agencies, by law, cannot obtain an emergency permit. They have to come to you. So if you're going through a private agency and they're sending you someone, and it's your responsibility, are you on an emergency permit with us? Or do you have a teaching certificate, a Pennsylvania teaching certificate? We're finding a lot of discrepancies. We're finding that the private agency might have the district, or the individual go to one district to get like a type 06. They're having them bring it in, and they're having it passed out to multiple school districts with the one request. We're also having them, maybe that they haven't gotten their clearances for their individuals before they send them out to you. We had an individual come into PDE. He had the substitute permit badge that the agency had given to him, and he had a huge background issue, security. In fact, that's why we ended up with blocked doors now on our floor. So you're responsible, if you're working directly with a private agency, whoever's walking in that door, it's your responsibility to make sure that they're covered.
Just to clarify and make sure we don't put the panic in everybody's heartbeat here, because almost everybody here uses substitute teacher service STS. Who uses us, the IU, to provide the guest teacher?
Right.
So
It's coming through you.
It's coming through the IU. So
Right.
I want to just make sure everybody here hears that when you're using STS, then you know that the permits are coming through the IU, and these are valid and good permits.
Right. If the IU is involved, that's different. But we have a lot of districts that don't have that involvement. They work directly with and only with a private agency, okay? And that's what I said at the beginning, not if you're working with the intermediate unit, because that stuff is all cleared at this level, okay? Do you have anybody that goes directly to and only with an agency? So everybody here works through, okay, that's good.
We do for long-term subs. Oh, sorry. So we work with the IU for the guest teachers, but for long-term subs, we work directly with, say, an STS.
Okay, but you are getting that 04 permit, yes.
We're doing that.
Yes, you, the 01s and 04s are coming through you. You're getting their background, you're seeing them sign the background questions and so forth in TIMS. They have to go in and generate the request to you for an 01 or 04, even if the agency is sending them. And then when they go in, they have to answer all those good moral character questions. And if they answer yes to any of them, that's flagged right away. So yeah, we're only talking about 06s that are coming out, like day-to-day permits. So if you're using 01 or 04, all they're doing is sending you someone, and you are doing all the paperwork. Yeah. Any other questions? Check to make sure the private provider, well, we don't really need to go into that because you're not going through just a private provider. Like I said, if they're coming to you for an 01 or 04 from a private provider, you're getting all of this information to get the emergency permit in the first place. Type 06 substitute audit. We get a lot of questions about being audited. For the most part, TIMS will flag as an audit like every 100 06 upload requests. Doesn't mean the person did anything wrong. They may have gotten an 06 5 years in a row, and this year they're audited. Okay, that just means they were number 100 or number 200. And if you were around years ago, these all had to come in paper to the Department of Education. All 06s, boxes, we had boxes and boxes, and they all had to be done manually, one by one. When we went to it online, we lost that ability to control or to review, so we designed an audit into the system, okay? So this is just our spot checking, all right? So we have individuals that get really upset when they're chose for that audit because they feel like they're being singled out or they did something wrong. No, they're just that number. So you might never have sent your documents to PDE because everything was done at the district level. We're asking you now to send them in, whether it's your bachelor's transcripts, now foreign, and if it's a good moral character issue, those do come in every year. Every year, if you have somebody with a good moral character background, those things have to be reviewed every year. They will be audited. If you have someone who is foreign, because we have to make sure that their green card is still valid, and so forth. So they will come in every year. But besides that, you just have somebody that's, pick of the mill, that's what they have to do. They have to send in a transcript and also the G form so we can review the good moral character questions, because you're supposed to get those, a 338G form, from everyone on your substitute list, regardless if it's an automatic upload or not. Okay, that's all that's on that G form are the background questions. So if you're going in and doing a reissue, that's fine. Like the same person, you're pulling up your list and you're reissuing, I want these 20 reissued 06 permits. You're still responsible to get their background questions answered every year. Something might have happened in the past year that needs to be cleared. Okay, so when we ask for an audit, we need a transcript and we need a copy of the G form where they answered the background questions. Day-to-day student substitutes. We're having a lot of questions about this right now. Day-to-day student substitutes. Act 86 allows, this is someone who is in a teacher certification program, whether it's the bachelor's level, are allowed to substitute 20 days total for the school year. Not 20 days per district, 20 days total. There's a lot of misinformation out there we're finding out that districts are thinking it's 20 days per district. So this student might be doing 20 days here, 20 days there, and 20 days for a third district. That is not correct. These are students, these are college students. They are allowed to substitute 20 days total. They can be in one assignment for 10 days in a straight, they might fill in for you for 10 days total for one individual. They cannot go beyond 10 days in one single classroom, consecutive days. Okay, but it's 20 days total. So if you put them in 2 10-day assignments, they're done for the year. Or you can use them 20 days as a day-to-day sub, or 10 as a single assignment and 10 more. Never the amount can go over 20. Okay? This is a locally issued permit. This is what we call a locally issued, meaning nothing comes into PDE. You keep all the records at the district level. They don't apply for an 06 because an 06 requires them to have a bachelor's degree. And these are students. They do not have bachelor's degrees. So you're not getting an 06 for them. You are keeping these records in HR at the district level. An 04 is a long-term substitute permit, okay? This is, and this is very clearly now defined in the CSPG. It's issued to fill a temporary vacancy that's going to exceed 20 consecutive days. Where you would use this is if the person is coming back that they're filling in for. The person might be on a sabbatical, a medical, a maternity leave, whatever it is, but they're coming back. Or they may not be coming back, but you need to put somebody in there till you can properly recruit. You need someone in there today while you advertise and you really do a search for a proper candidate. Or you might be eliminating this position at the end of this year. You're not going to be, you don't want to put somebody in there on an O1, have them go back to college and do a program when you know this position is going to be terminated at the end of this year anyway. Okay, so an O4 is for a temporary. It's not where you're going to be hiring somebody. This does not come with an education obligation. They're helping you out. It can be issued 2 times for the same subject area. Okay, 2 times only. A type 01 is a permit that they are going to fill. You have this opening. You have advertised it 10 days. You don't have any qualified applicant, but this is a position. This is secondary math, and you're going to be, this is a position that's going to be open there forever. Then you want to bring the person in, and they are under an education obligation. This would be a new position maybe that you've just generated. This might be due to a resignation, a retirement, or a termination. Okay, so it's not a temporary position. This is a full-time position. What we've done is restructured the ladder of requirements. Okay, this was brand new this past year. What we were hearing was a lot of districts, students or candidates, till they got on the permit and got into a program, they couldn't complete the 9 credits that were required for reissuance. It just wasn't enough time. So what we've done is restructured the requirements, and this was in effect this year when we did the emergency permits. That first year on the permit only, dependent on when the permit was issued, it determines the requirements. So you can see it goes 6, 3, and then proof of program enrollment. So this is for the second the first reissuance only. After that, second reissuance and all further requests required the 9 credits. We just restructured that first year's requirements because it does take a while for them to choose a program and to get into it, get accepted. And sometimes, this is really tight, but we found there was not a lot of complaints with this restructuring. It does seem to be doable now for that first year. And then once they're in the program, they're established, then they can get their 9 credits. That did not seem to be a problem. Any other questions on emergency permits? Are we clear with that? Great, great. Karen, you want to? I think. Let me see. Oh, no, I'm to the next one. Okay, testing requirements. This is a change to the education leadership test. So if you have any people in your district that are going for the principal certification right now, and this is on our website, their test is changing. And it's not a matter of we changed the test. ETS has changed the test. So they won't even have the ability to take the old test. So it's not going to be hopefully very confusing because it's not like ETS is still giving the old test and that PDE has chosen to go with a different test. That ETS has changed the test and the test code. They've updated it to include today's competencies. So that's information about that. Commissions, I don't know if any of you are responsible for the commissions, change of superintendents and so forth. It used to be with school services. It is now with our division. Deb Haynes on our staff is heading this up, and she is also training the other supervisor, Phil Ferrari. So there will be 2 dealing with the commissions. But for right now, if you have any questions, you need to direct them to Deb Haynes on our staff, because she's had close to a year now of this under her belt. She's really fine-streamed it. It seems to be going very well. So she is your contact person for the time being. And there's just a little bit more information. She has revised the BEC to update that with all that information. The applications, there's a link in the back, and also under fees and forms, you can find the proper information to do that. You have to remember to submit your changes through Edna. She needs that as one of the first steps, that you are responsible for going in and putting that change in. She then can work with that information once you've actually submitted it into Edna, but you have to make that initial change request. And the applications get mailed to us on the 12th floor. I think we have information. If you don't have our address, I think we have it at the end. Staffing is, Karen is going to take over that. She was talking about CSPGs. There we go.
Okay, I'm wondering if some of you wondered what we were talking about with CSPGs. Hopefully you're not totally lost, because we didn't put this at the very beginning. What are the CSPGs? And some of you know these for years, but they are certification policies that apply to public school educators and school entities. So not only your teachers, but also HR deals with the CSPGs. They're your book that you need handy, or your website these days. It's essential information for certification processes and each public school certificate or license area. And updates are found in the table of contents. If you go onto our website and you look under educators, certification, you will come up with the 9 blocks of pertinent information. The bottom right-hand corner is staffing guidelines. That's the same thing as CSPGs, which means certification, staffing policies, and guidelines. If you click on that box, in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see small links, 3 small links. One is table of contents. And that's where you look for updates if you're lost with what's new in the guidelines. Because each CSPG will have a date of its last update, and we have several for this year, because we keep having changes of information, because things are constantly changing these days. All right, this is how CSPGs fit into the broad picture. I think this is really helpful, because where in the world did CSPGs come from? We have 3 categories here. Public School Code, which is Article 12, that is a statute. And we have a big book in our office, big books, every year they come out. School Code, the latest legislation of school information. Okay, then we have regulation. That's state-based, Pennsylvania-based. Title 22 is another way to refer to it. Chapter 49 of the PA Code. Those are ways you'll see it listed if you're confused by such terminology. And that's determined by the State Board of Education. And then I'm skipping a couple things, because I think those things I mentioned are the most important. But the policy is our office and our bureau and PDE, certification, staffing policies, and guidelines. Okay, that's what we've been talking about. Those are your biggest guide for how to staff people in your IU or district, what certificate does what, or what procedures, like in TIMS and applications for emergencies, all kinds of things that apply to your people that you hire. We also, in small print, is the basic education circulars. Those are on the website. They are other guidance. They are not the same thing, but they are policy guidance based on the regulation, Title 22. And so there's details there that are very important for you also. Okay, hopefully this helps you get a broad picture of where they fit in the whole scale. All right, staffing, this is what I do, one of the things. Staffing academic programs with appropriate certification. You can send job descriptions by email to me if you're not sure who in the world is supposed to be the teacher for this program. A lot of examples would be STEM, STEAM. These are new, and they vary with who's doing what. It varies because the content isn't the same for every STEM program. It might be a science major focus, or it might be the basic introductory engineering, or it might have a different focus. And so we prefer to review those or talk over the phone and discuss it. Sometimes that's easier with STEM. And what are you planning to do with it? How are you trying to present it? There's elementary levels, high school levels, middle school levels. And recently, for an example, we had one district who, well, they really wanted a general science teacher for this STEM program, but it really had no content that fit that certificate very clearly. It was much more of a tech ed, which is engineering, and it was much more of a physics approach. So this person, we decided this person should talk to our curricular advisor for sciences, who really helped this district streamline their content to match general science standards. So we can work with you, let's put it that way. You know, STEM is not a close fit to it's not always a close fit to only physics, only math, only tech ed, only elementary, but there's a combination going on, and a team approach is always good. However, a team approach may not be practical. It's not feasible to your budget. So we can work with you. In the future, we're going to have some specific certificates for these things, but we're in the process right now. And so in the meantime, well, I'm going to backtrack a minute. How do we make determinations for academic programs? By the CSPGs, additional PDE policy, because we have a lot of meetings with current trends and changes. And so sometimes the CSPG doesn't give all the answers. It's a general answer. So we do have some extra policies going on. And then also the college-specific program guidelines. If you're not sure yourself, you can go in and look at those, because each college program for a certificate has a lot of details of what this person has to learn in their college program, and those are the things they're able to teach. So that's another reference if you're really, really stuck. And there are some college program guidelines that give a lot more details than the CSPGs, even though the CSPGs are our first and foremost guidance. Vocational programs are different. We have a CSPG for vocational, but it does not list all the various programs and certificates needed. You have to go more in detail by looking up zip codes. What is a zip code? Well, it's something to do with national vocational numbering of programs for vocational areas. And we have an area on our website that has about 3 pages of specific programs with links. They each open up to a description and what certificates. So if you call me and ask, I'll help you find that. I mean, I use that to help you with vocational programs. I also work with the vocational office because they run the programs. Okay, and there's a link to zip codes. Vocational certificates are only used for voc programs. They're not used in the academic school. We have questions on that. I just explained what's on this slide, so you can refer back to this. Here are some other pieces of information that might apply to when you're trying to staff, especially special ed. When a special ed, what is it? Does everybody know what ESSA is? Every student, what is it? Okay, Every Student Succeeds Act. When we had a former requirement from the federal government, it was called highly qualified teachers. But in 2016-17 school year, ESSA took over. It's a new federal mapping of requirements. There have been changes, particularly you might notice in special ed. So when a certificate is issued right now for special ed, they also must have a certain kind of content certificate that they get in order to have the special ed certificate issued. Now that's only when it's issued, because Chapter 49, which I had on the screen, the college program still must require that until that is changed. So it's a little complicated for people from out of state. It's complicated for PA people also, but that's what the requirement is right now. And so if they have a special ed pre-K through 8 certificate, they might be required to get a pre-K through 4 with it, so they have good content understanding. If there's 7 through 12 special ed, they might be required to get some other 7 through 12 content, like math 7 through 12 or English 7 through 12. There's variety that they're allowed to do, but there are also some boundaries. Now, when you staff a classroom, you no longer have to do it that way. So if someone comes out of college with special ed pre-K through 8 and pre-K through, well, let's start with another one. If they come out with 7 through 12 special ed and math 7 through 12, and you want them for English and special ed, you don't have to have the English certificate. You definitely have to have the special ed one, but not necessarily the content area that fits the kids. So for the classroom, you only have to have the special ed one. All right, so that's we've had this out for a long time, but we find people that don't know this every day. So hopefully this will help your staffing. Did I skip one? No, I think it. No. I think that's the right one. Okay, Chapter 49, exceptions. Now, if you have a special ed pre-K through 8 certificate, but you cannot find a 7 through 12 special ed certificate, because they're few and far between, apparently, according to what we see, then we have something Chapter 49 provides for that problem. You are able to, we have a process. You write us an official letter. You can email it directly to me. And you will say, I need this specific assignment covered. I have this person who can cover it, but they only have pre-K through 8. And here's all the reasons they should be able to do this well. Like, justify it with a couple reasons. Give their PPID number. We always need PPID numbers. Anytime you communicate with us, we need PPID numbers. So just automatically give us that, the name, and a couple good reasons why this person is able to handle this job. Okay, you email the letter to me. If you prefer to send it to the director, that's fine, but I work on these directly. So an agency cannot do this. We've had some agencies attempt to do this for the district to help them out, but we won't accept it from them. So we told the agency you have to go back to the district. We've had over 160 requests to cover grades 7 through 12 special ed with a pre-K through 8 certificate. It's probably up to 180 by now since I put this number in. But anyway, we have these all the time. And we grant probably 98% of them. The only reason we won't, if you don't have the special requirements that we have, which are, they must have at least one special ed certificate. One of the two. They must have one to get the other exception. You can't just, I'm an elementary teacher, I want this person to have an exception for special ed. You can't do that. They don't have any background, so we can't make an exception. Anyway, it can be granted for 5 years. If you need it that long, you might not need it more than a semester, but you can do it for 5 years with one letter of approval. And you can reapply. It's free. The whole thing is free. Yay. So you send a letter. There's also a TIMS process for the educator to go in and apply for an exceptional case permit. We have all these directions. If you email me, I send you 2 attachments, one about the letter and one about how to do the TIMS process. And then in the end, you get an approval letter, and the district itself files that. This time will count for level 2. This time will count for against validity, and we have that right in our letter. So this letter should be kept, because if anyone applies for level 2, they're going to need this. We have a system that keeps these records, but you should keep your own records also. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. This is the same thing I just said, the 2 steps. And public school and APS schools, the approved private schools, specifically may do this. Also, private licensed academic schools, and the reason is because they are required to have special ed public school certificates. So they are allowed to do it. Now, of course, for private academic schools, it does not count against validity. But all of these can count for level 2. Okay, this Act 82, Section 1386, is about special ed. I'm just curious how many people know what this act is. Okay, this is about special ed for the future. Since there's been so many issues with having 2 separate certificates and we can't find a way to cover this assignment and that assignment, and it's an exception you have to write just to get it covered, they decided this was an important issue, and this is what's coming in the future. After 12/31/2021, a special ed certificate pre-K-12 with no additional content certificate will be issued. Now, those people have to be in a college program that's designed for this certificate. We are in the process of developing those new guidelines for the colleges. But once that happens, I think everyone's going to be happy because it's a staffing help, major help. The special ed pre-K through 8 and 7 through 12 will have an opportunity to expand its scope to pre-K through 12. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to get a certificate that says pre-K through 12, but you can do this right now. We are developing more guidance on how this process will be, but right now you can also do this. And right now, if you have only pre-K through 8, you will have to go back to the college and get a course or 2 or 3, whatever the college says. It's not much from what we hear. And then right now the policy is, right now, you don't have to take additional special ed tests. The ones that you already took will be sufficient. Now, we don't know if that's going to change for the future, but right now that is the policy. So does anyone have a question on what that, clarification of that? I'm sure you have people that have these certificates and they want to add the other area. Act 82 also provides for early childhood pre-K through 4 certificates to expand to include grades 5 and 6. And we have this process right now. There's some tests you can take to add 5 and 6. And these are the tests we've listed. They come from the grades 4 through 8 grouping of tests, but there's only 2 here that you need to take. And this is only for pre-K through 4 certificates. Nobody else can do this. It's a special 5 and 6 add-on to make it easier to staff K through 6. And this is available right now. You can also get an exception for pre-K through 4 in the meantime. If you want someone to teach 5th grade or 6th grade, you can apply for that same exception I talked about for special ed, because this pre-K through 4 certificate is part of the group that allows for an exception. But in the long run, they can add the real thing. ESL, with ESSA, there were some changes from HQT. And what's the basics about this change? Before, you could take a test in a content area to be highly qualified with an ESL program specialist. Now, a test is not sufficient. That was for highly qualified. What you need is to teach ESL, you can be a support person with just ESL. So if you're an out-of-state person that only has ESL on their certificate, you can be support. In other words, you can do ELD, Early Language Development, with students who are identified. You cannot teach a content for a content grade. Like, for instance, if you're teaching ESL English to ESL students, and they're going to have an English grade, they need an English certificate or an elementary certificate that has the prep in the English area. That's just general information. We have advisors for ESL programs. If you're really stuck on some heavy details that seem to come up from time to time, we can refer you to the right people. But these are the basics under ESSA. You can't just take a test for a content and have it there on your record with ESL program specialists. It's not sufficient. So that's a change from in the 2015-16 year. Okay, this is a coming certificate, computer science. It's an existing course right now, and we staff it with a couple certificates on the next page, but we are developing our certificate. The guidelines for the colleges are already approved, and the next step is the programs are going to come in for approval, and this will be down the line. The computer science course is different in many ways than just regular computer ed. It might contain science information, some math things over and above word processing and all the business applications for computer education. So there's a difference. Here's the 4 certificates that we use right now to staff computer science. Not computer ed basics like word processing, but computer science, which if you need more help with that, we have some information for computer science standards, and we can help you with questions you have in your job descriptions and your course descriptions. Like I said, computer science is underway for 7 through 12 right now. In the future, 4 through 8 concentrations, and also pre-K through 4 competencies. So there will be training in this in programs for the college certificate. And we're developing a STEM certificate down the line that's next in line after the computer science. I think we're getting close to the time frame. So I don't know if we can wind this up. If we have questions, Flip, maybe we can work with you to get their questions somehow.
Go ahead and finish through your slides, and we'll give a couple minutes to wrap up the questions. We'll do past 11:30.
Okay, sorry about
Okay.
your lunch hour.
Okay, this will just be very quick. There is a TIMS public search. You probably all know that. It was changed to an educator public search under the help with TIMS, under the TIMS rectangle on the website. This is where you can go in, and you should go in, because all they're bringing to you is a photocopy anymore. You should be verifying everybody's accurate official information by checking the public cert. If you put in their PPID number, it'll take you directly to that person. If you put in the person's name, you're gonna be given some options. So PPID gives you more information on the person than if you just find them through by name. Also, expediting an application. Go ahead.
Sometimes when we do a search by signing on to PIMS from our school district standpoint, and sometimes when we search through the public, we're getting differing information. Like, we don't see if let's say they applied for some sort of cert, we can see that through the public search, but not always when we're searching by signing on to PIMS.
PIMS and TIMS don't talk.
Okay.
Okay? PIMS, the only time they talk is TIMS will go into PIMS to pull whatever work experience is there. So if you really want to know what's going on with an educator, if they have an application in and so forth, you need to go into the public search and search through TIMS with their PPID number.
Okay.
That will give you any current applications as well that they have pending.
Thank you.
Yeah, 2 different, and it's different from PERMS. We love acronyms. Okay, expediting an application just very quickly. We will honor a school district's expedite request for 2 instances only, and that is if someone, an educator's level 1 is going to lapse and you want to help them out. Not all districts want to do that, but you have the option of helping them out, and if their application is in there that you have searched through the public site and you see that they have an application in there, in the awaiting evaluation status. Awaiting evaluation status of an application means that it is waiting in line to be reviewed. Okay? If it's pending documentation, it means the person's not even submitted the documents yet. You submit an expedite, it's not doing anything. Okay? Only when you expedite and awaiting an evaluation does it move that application to the top of the pile. Okay? Also, if this is an application for a candidate that you want to hire, you want to make sure that they're going to get certified before you offer them that job. You can expedite an application then. We do not expedite emergency permit requests, even though you guys try very hard to do that. But we'll get a note back from us that says we do not expedite because they are already given priority. When you submit an application for emergency permit, those go to the top of the specialist work queue already. So if there's 20 in there, you expedite, everybody's emergency permit is an emergency to them. Yours is no more important than over on this side. So we ask that you be patient and wait your turn. So we do not expedite emergency permits or for payroll purposes, okay? What that does is when you expedite an application, it puts a kink in the whole process, and it puts those applications on top of somebody who's waiting patiently, and it causes an unfair process. So there are times when we realize that it is important that you expedite an application, and we try to honor those, but we ask you also that, you know, you play fairly. And this is the process. You can read it on your paper yourself if you've never done it. It's something that you do on your end through TIMS, okay? And the end is just how to contact us. Call, chat, email. Calling is very frustrating. We understand that. We can't help it. We have 1 and 2 people on the phone at one time. We can't sacrifice any more staff than that. We're down to about the bones. So your best bet is to email through the RA account, because we do pull those at, we do have the ability to pull those a lot sooner. This is where you can go in and submit that information, how to stay tuned. And there's Karen's and my contact information. And the end. Oh, I don't know if you were going to take that long. Now, are there any questions? I think we took a lot of your time.
You got the certification experts here in the room. Now's your time.
You have one back there.
Thanks. I just have 2. When a candidate receives their bachelor's and master's degrees concurrently, how do you calculate that towards the 24 credits needed for level 2?
We have a policy that if they are issued a bachelor's, because we do see this lots of times coming from out of state, and a master's, we will count the first 120 credits towards the bachelor's, and then beyond that for the master's. Okay.
And second question, for the ESL certification, can that only be attached to an English cert and the grades pre-K to 4 and 4 to 8 certs? Or,
No, it can be attached to any instructional cert.
okay, so if somebody has, let's say, art K to 12 and they have ESL K to 12,
They can only really do support,
they can't actually
because,
teach it.
I mean, they could teach art, ESL, without a doubt, but most of the content is what you're interested in. So they can only support, they could do ELD, like, without an English grade, just the ELD, like the English transition kind of program.
Okay.
And I think what Karen's trying to say, the PDE does not prohibit them from adding ESL onto any instructional.
Correct.
But how you use them in staffing is another issue.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I just have more of a question. One of my emergency certs picked the wrong certification area. Does she have to resubmit? Like, I just noticed it when I went in to the TIMS.
Well-
Does the applicant have to resubmit, like, or can I correct it online?
She didn't choose the wrong subject area. The school did. Okay? When someone applies, let me just go over this very quickly, the process. Sorry. I'm sorry. But when you direct someone that you want to get an emergency permit for them, okay? All they do is go into their TIMS dashboard, put their information in, their profile, personal profile, affiliate with the school, and hit submit. The school, whoever's the first certifying officer that works with that application, pulls it up, chooses the year, the type, and the subject area. Then they hit submit and it goes on to the superintendent level. So the mistake was made. Now, if you email us, was it the subject area only?
Yeah,
And what status is it in? Has it already been approved?
yes, yes.
Okay. Do you know how long ago?
September.
Oh.
This year.
This year. Okay, you can email me and I'll look into that because, yeah, that was the school. Sorry. And we have that misconception all the time. You know, the school, when it gets up to the next level or someone else looks at it, insists the candidate chose the wrong information. They don't even have that ability. All they do is affiliate with you, hit submit, and all that is their request to you is, hey, can you use me on an emergency permit? Sometimes you won't even know who those people are and you can just deny them and delete them. But that's all they do. Sorry.
Other questions from the group? All right, looks like we have wrapped this up, so I want to thank both Renee and Karen for their time here.